Hi all. It's good to see you all again, even though you can see me better than I can see you in the dark. This is unfair. All the good-looking people are in the audience and not one is on stage. Hi, that's my Twitter ID, at Mahesh Murthy. There are lots of pictures of Nepal here because I actually wanted to first give a talk, but then Kavi suggested put a few slides. I didn't know what background, so I just picked some nice pictures of Nepal. So there's no other meaning than that. Just quickly in terms of some basic creds, I wear two hats. Uh, one hat as a marketer. I actually worked in the Pacific Northwest. I helped design and launch Amazon.com globally in 95, 96. I also designed and launched Yahoo globally. I worked on brands like Pepsi, Nike, Microsoft, and we're now working on a brand here, Encel. So if there's nice work, or not so nice work, you know who to blame. The other hat I wear is that of an investor. I've invested in 64 companies so far over the last 21 years. I'm on my fourth fund. And most of them are based in India, so if you know some of them, Redbus is India's largest bus ticketing company. We do 125,000 tickets a day, or at least we did that, now it's over 200,000. Chumbak is a fashion brand that many of you ladies will know if you've been out there. Carvale is the largest car classifieds company. If you've been to Bombay, Dulali makes the best beer. Maybe some of you have studied in an MBA college in India after taking a course at Career Launcher. Or there's Pinstorm, which is an advertising firm, which also has an office in Nepal. The only one small claim to fame is we launched India's first private satellite. We were India's first private company in space last year. It was fun. We launched on SpaceX, and we launched our second satellite this year on ISRO in April. With all of this, I've come to some kind of conclusions and some kind of initial ideas that there is something new and there's something changing in the world of marketing. What I want to do is present to you some thoughts on these, right? The gold standard of marketing is always, if you've read the books, you've done an MBA. I haven't. I was a high school dropout. It's basically Coca-Cola. You do this well, you have great TV commercials, you do this distribution, you own the entire thing, you're renowned as a great marketer. And with all this, you kind of end up selling a 330 ml can for about 30 cents. I'm doing this in US cents. You can compare it to Nepalese rupees or Indian rupees or whatever it is you're comfortable with. But basically, it comes down to the fact that that enormous amount of expertise has gone into selling basically 10 ml of Coke for 1 cent. That's what it comes down to, right? And that's the gold standard of marketing. But the really interesting thing is a recent upstart does 8 times better. Red Bull sells a 200 ml can for $1.50, which is about 8 times the realization per milliliter for basically the same thing, sugar and water, which is what is there in Coke and there in Red Bull as well. There's no difference really in the product out there. And interestingly, Red Bull almost doesn't advertise, right? And it's now a $6 or $7 billion company with a 54% market share in the energy drink segment. The classical automotive marketing, coming after what Tin said, is, I'm taking the Ford Motor Company, and this is the Ford T150, their classic truck. Essentially, Ford spends $4 to $6 billion to make about 150 billion, 120 billion actually, in sales. And interestingly, and I wrote a piece about this, Tesla launched the Cybertruck and took orders worth 25 billion in 2 weeks by spending zero on advertising. All right? And so there's something new and different happening in the world of marketing out there. And Tesla did this earlier too. They launched the Tesla Model 3. They got $14 billion of orders in the first 3 days after a press conference, and they've already delivered $16 billion worth of Tesla Model 3 cars. So it's not just about orders that have come in, but also cars that have actually been delivered. In classical marketing, you're taught that it's okay to spend between 5 and 10% of your sales as your marketing budget. And that's typically, in the fashion world, you say, I've got about a 7% allocation. Most classical brands say, for every dollar I earn, I spend maybe 7 to 10 cents on marketing. And here's the world's largest apparel company, Zara, that does not even spend 1% of its revenues on marketing or advertising. You've all heard of Zara, and you all have never seen a Zara ad. And another of my brands is closed. Uniqlo, which is a brand which started from Japan, but Zara started from Spain, is closed. It's about 2% right now. In most classical thinking, marketing thinking, in any marketplace, anybody can fight. The top guy, and this is true in pharmaceuticals, gets about a 10% market share, and everybody fights for smaller percentages of market share, right? So in any one category, there are 5, 7, 10 companies, and that's how we grew up. But things have changed. Today, the number one brand tends to get 50% plus market share, whether it's a Red Bull, or whether it's a Starbucks, or whether it's a Tesla, which has about 70% market share in electric cars. While Volkswagen has 17% or 18% market share, the Volkswagen Group, in gasoline cars. So essentially what you're seeing is the difference between classical marketing and new marketing is classical marketing allowed a lot more companies to be there, while modern marketing and everything with the internet basically makes room for 2 or 3 players. And you'll see this increasingly as we go. Facebook has an 85% market share, 0 ad spend. You've never seen a Facebook ad. You've never seen an ad for Instagram either, but you use it. It has, again, 85% market share in that sector. 88% of the world is Android. You've never seen an ad for the brand Android. 90% of all video in the world are on the brand YouTube, and YouTube doesn't advertise. All right? Increasingly, we're seeing this. Google, search. You think that competition is increasing, but increasingly you're seeing that it's harder and harder to compete with, especially in places where you think it's easy to compete. All they need is a few computers, right? 92% of the world's search market is Google, and Google doesn't spend on advertising. 98% of the world's mapping market is Google Maps, and Google Maps doesn't advertise. 100%, or let's give it 99%, of the microblogging market is Twitter. You've never seen a Twitter ad. There is something new that is happening in the world out there. Increasingly, I almost joke with the companies that I invest in that there are only 3 positions in the market. The top guy gets 90%, the next guy gets 9%, the third guy gets 0.9%, right? So it basically means you can either be number 1 or number 2. There's really nothing else to do in the market increasingly. I bet you can't name the number 3 search engine in the world. Can you even name the number 2 search engine in the world after Google? It's Bing, yeah. So it's increasingly hard. Imagine, across 196 countries, there is no number 3 player in the market. So in this extraordinary business out there, classical marketing has gone out of the window. In classical marketing, you're taught, hey, you need to advertise, you need to get Shah Rukh Khan to do this, you need to pay a lot of money to your evangelists, you need to pay your influencers, you need to do all of this stuff. But every single one of these brands is a brand that you've heard of, is a brand worth tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, and none of these brands increasingly spend anything on advertising, right? Obviously, there's a better way to market than the 4 Ps that we've all learned, that we all taught. But strangely, no books seem to be written about this. Newspapers don't seem to cover this, pretty obviously, because you're taking away their advertising revenue, all right? And no MBA program I know teaches this, all right? The winners are the ones who almost never spend on advertising. It's the losers who spend on advertising, all right? And nobody really likes to be told that, increasingly. So from a very subjective and personal point of view, I really want to offer you my take on the rules. And I'll quickly go through it. We'll hopefully have a little time for questions at the end, all right? The first one really, like I said, it really comes out of this entire point saying, you've got to dominate or you're dead. You've got to be the 90, failing which you've got to be the 9, or you don't matter. Which means that in that market that you're going after, if you really want to compete, especially in the digital age, you've got to figure out something vastly different. And especially, you can't be doing, let's do the Google for Nepal, let's do the Facebook for Nepal. You have to be doing something which will probably give you the 90% market for whatever it is in Nepal, right? So there is really no other option. The second interesting thing is that to get there, you don't really spend on ads. The winners almost never spend on ads. Think about each of the brands that we've talked about. They instead spend their money on the product defining the product, refining it, and making the product so incredibly remark-worthy that people keep talking about it. How did you hear about any of these brands? You heard about these brands because somebody told you, somebody wrote about it. Nobody was paid to. Somebody really, on an unpaid basis, became evangelists for these brands. And that's really what refining your product has become these days. And at the base of this is really discerning what do customers want or what do consumers want. And often it's believed that, hey, we'll just do research and research will tell us what customers want. Not true. Research will only tell you where the customer is. It cannot tell you where the customer wants to be. And famous examples of this, and Steve Jobs himself said it, if I had done research on the Motorola phone and talked to every mobile phone user in the world, he would have said, I want a phone with a better keypad. Instead, his insight said, no, let's do a phone with an all-glass screen. All right? So there is a huge role for your gut feel and your instinct and your insight where you cannot take research for granted. You have to say research is where the customer is. My talent, my insight, my understanding is where I believe I can take this customer. Research can't tell you where to go. It can tell you where to start from. Insight is what you need, and insight doesn't come from research. After all of this, when you're building your startup, differentiate meaningfully. There's really no point with 5 of you coming with the same solution. Now, I don't know too much, but I was walking around there. I saw 4 companies outside, all of them saying, we do some transportation services, transportation-related services. What's your meaningful difference? It's not just different that your logo is red and the other guy's logo is blue. What difference is meaningful to your customers and meaningful in such a way that they will talk about it to somebody else? And that's really the key. The key here is to offer that level of delight to your customers, so much delight that the person can't stop talking about it even though he or she has never been paid to talk about it. The best testimonial, the best endorser is somebody who's never been paid and somebody, who talks to you straight from the heart. And that's really what you want to aim for. The test for your product is always, the tester says, if you're in a bar and your target audience was at the bar, what would they say, if at all, anything about your product? Would they talk at all? If not, we need to find something that will make them talk about it, because that talking about it is going to go through this little incredible network we have called the internet and reach 5 billion people and make you very rich one day. That's really what you need to do. All right? And at the end of all of this is the entire point of don't discount. You must have realized through each of these products, whether it's a cup of coffee from Starbucks, which is the most expensive coffee that you can find in the coffee shop, or a Tesla, which is again expensive and not cheap, or a Red Bull, which is again expensive and not cheap, is that these market-leading brands do not discount. They are in fact premium brands. And that's where the double whammy comes in terms of you winning. You spend less on advertising, and you earn more when you charge and you get a customer. As opposed to all the e-commerce portals that we saw in India and everywhere else in the world, that did the opposite. They spent a lot of money on advertising to say that we are discounting the product to sell it even cheaper. It's like saying, I'm spending money to tell you I'm going to earn less money, while winners do the opposite. You spend less money and you earn more in the process. Finally, there's got to be something in the product that allows these remarks and this chatter from customers to be distributable. Can people tweet about it? Can they take photographs of it? One of the cool things about the Cybertruck was it was so different that people couldn't stop passing that photograph around. All right? What in your product can make it so remark-worthy? All right? In Tin's presentation, there was a car. And I'm sure the designers there said, look, we've got the car. We've got to make the car in such a way that people photograph it, and it's cute, and it's lovable, and it has to be shared around the world. So what's really important is, again, is there a scope for this remark to be spread? If it's a restaurant, is it Instagrammable? If it's a dish, is it Instagrammable? If it's a car, is it something that can be talked about? Is it LinkedInable? Is it Facebookable? Is it Instagrammable? Is it Snapchatable? What in the product allows for it to be easily talked about, where the news can be distributed around the world easily? All right? After doing all of that, you will see a even more major disruption, and this is where it's interesting. classical marketing has told us that, look, basically, you're a FMCG company, you're Unilever. So you make one toothpaste, then you make another toothpaste, and you make another toothpaste, and you make another toothpaste. And you say, I'm going to make a huge line extension. I'm going to make a toothbrush, then I'll make another toothbrush and another toothbrush. And guess what? I'm going to make a soap and another soap. And that's how Unilever grew. That's how Procter & Gamble grew. They basically tried to be in the business that we experts called line extension. But if you look at modern businesses, they don't follow any such thing. It's basically like Google saying, look, I'm doing search. I'm here. I've ended up with 90% market share. What do? Let me take this ball and throw it far away into an empty area, and let me go pick up another 90% space around there in an area called maps. Well, maps has nothing to do with search. And after standing at maps, he throws something somewhere else and builds Android, which has nothing to do with either. And he builds somewhere else, throws something else into, self-driving cars, and Waymo is now a leader there, and it has nothing to do with any of the others. And now they're going to the moon and, putting up balloons in space and doing whatnot. Or even Apple. Apple's a great example where it started as a desktop company, then became a laptop company, then became a music player company, then became a phone company, and now is becoming a watch company. And there's no line extension there anymore. So line extensions are the death. So essentially disrupt, but at a distance from where you are, where rather than getting 1, 2, 3% market share, 1, 2, 3% market share, 1, 2, 3% market share, aim for your 80%, 90% market share wherever you go. And the interesting thing is your brand is allowed to do that. Today, a brand like Virgin is a cola, is a rail line, is insurance, is a record label, and is also a space company that takes tourists into space. One brand can be all of that. Once upon a time, it was believed that consumers only gave brands a small amount of room to move in, and that's not true anymore. So today, as you grow your business, find other places to build dominance rather than try to say, I have to go somewhere next to me. No, you don't have to. All right? And when you do have to talk about things, so rather than the 4 Ps of product, pricing, placing, and promotion, what you want to do is a different model, what we call Aspire, which is basically absorb, which is like listen to everything that's being said out there. You can call it ORM, whatever, social media, etc. Solve, which is customer service. Customer service is a part of marketing. Somebody has a problem, solve it. Because that, not just is it important to solve the problem, but there are 1,000 people looking at how you solve the problem. When anytime somebody complains about Indigo's service and Indigo replies, it's not just a person being replied to. There's 1,000 people looking at that Twitter feed to see how did they solve that problem. So absorb, solve the problem, take a look at all of that and plan. So look at all the chat and say, okay, what is it I should be doing? What should my plan be? What product should I aim at what part of the market? All right? After that, from the plan comes the next point of, okay, based on this plan, what product should I invent? What route should I invent? For whatever reason, Indigo came out, for example, with an interesting route going from Varanasi to Bangkok, all right? Which, of course, gave lots of jokes about what Yogi Adityanath would be doing, etc. But it was inspired because nobody else has that route. So some instinct, some insight gave them the idea that that route could be profitable or could be viable or not. Once you invent, and if it's new enough and it's remark-worthy enough, it will spread. And if it doesn't, radiate it. Use some paid media to get the word out. But the more important thing is do this endlessly. While you might work 5 days a week or 6 days a week from 9 to 5, your customer is there 24 hours a day across every time zone in the world, all right, 7 days a week. So increasingly, for example, for some of our clients, we now run 3 shifts, right? Because we have to support them 24 hours a day. So we run 3 shifts because our clients' customers don't sleep at 5 p.m., right? They're awake well after that. At the end of all this is really interesting news for any entrepreneur. Because if you believe that you need a huge amount of money to start a business, a huge amount of money to market, big money, you need Shah Rukh Khan to endorse your product, you need a large amount of money in the bank, the answer is no, 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 and no. You can dream. You can dream a better product, and if that product gets that traction because it has extraordinary word of mouth, because it is offering delight, it is differentiated, it's differentiated in a meaningful way, it's really remark-worthy, you can be the next unicorn. You can be the next billionaire, all right? So instead of 3D, those are my 10 Ds in terms of the rules for the new marketing. I have about 70 seconds left. I think we can take a few questions. Anybody out there? One there. I've already answered many of your questions. Any other questions in the house? Two? I'll start with you, sir. I've already answered your question. You? Yes, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon. My question is not related to this one, but former one. May I?
Okay. Any others with anybody else with questions about the marketing thing? He's going back to investment. Yeah. People don't care about marketing; they want money. Yeah, go on.
No. My question is about for an investor mind. What would you see and why from these 4 points? Vision and idea of a company, or ecosystem of a company, or the true trust or loyalty of a company, or a model of a company.
None of them matter to me. What matters is the customer going to buy the product? How many is the customer going to buy?
In which company are you going to invest?
None of them. They don't matter. What matters to me is what is the fit between the product of the company and what the customer wants, and how rapidly can the customer buy many numbers of that product. That's what matters to me. Yeah?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, any more questions? Sir.
Do you feel your marketing about, is it cultural based in terms of this classical and modern approach to marketing, and that this classical approach that it's all about ad spend forced towards the customer, versus this modern approach, which is it's more about the product? Do you think this transcends cultural boundaries and this cultural fluency in South Asia, for example, or globally? Or do we focus on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually do think it's global. If you look at, for example, how the elections were won in Nepal, I don't think the ruling party had a lot of money on advertising, all right, out here. I don't particularly think that the country put out a huge call with lots of ads around the world saying, hey, we've suffered from an earthquake, come help us. The world stepped in to help and the country stepped up to help. Anywhere in the world. I've seen this work everywhere. Whether it's what June 6th means in China, Tiananmen, or whether it's the rise of parties, small regional parties in India, or the extraordinary spread of fake news through any language, any channel, through WhatsApp, through Viber, etc. I don't particularly think it's culture dependent, all right? In fact, I think the biggest shock is probably more in Western culture because it's far more ingrained in terms of, hey, there's a process. You've got to do the P for promotion. You've got to spend that amount of money on ads. While that really hasn't been a huge amount of the culture of it. There are lots of homegrown winners out here who haven't spent that amount of money on ads out here. So I've worked in the US, I've worked in China, I worked in India, and I work now in Europe. I haven't really seen any difference. I think this is reasonably, again, I'm not a qualified author. This is what I've seen as my observations. I don't think there's any cultural difference. The core still remains that the secret to winning is being remark-worthy. I hope that helps. Guys, thank you very much. That's my email address. Thanks.